All right, everybody, welcome back to the Waiver Wire. It's July 12th, 7:47 p.m. I'm joined once again by Nick. We're here to talk a couple of hoops, man. How you doing?
Good. Recovering from another trade.
Yeah. Yeah, man. So, Westbrook and CP3 just got traded for each other. A couple picks were thrown in there, too, to incentivize OKC. But, this Houston Rockets team, they're coming off the two most winningest consecutive seasons in franchise history. They took the ultimate NBA champions to 7 games 2 years ago. Why break this up?
Yeah, it is a little interesting. I think there's a lot of teams that aren't that good that are going, wow, I wish my problem was Chris Paul. But I think ultimately it came down to the relationship between Chris Paul and the Rockets. I know there's rumors between James Harden and Chris Paul, but I think it's more than that. I think that James Harden may have something to do with it, but I think ultimately it's Chris Paul and the Rockets. If it's Daryl Morey, D'Antonio, maybe James Harden in there a little bit. I think he wanted out, and I think it was really convenient for the Rockets that Westbrook wanted out of his situation as well. So I think that both teams contacted each other and said, let's move two guys that don't want to be where they're at and throw some picks in to make it better. But it will be interesting to see how it works on the court.
Yeah, we got Westbrook averaging a triple double. He's 23 a game, shooting 42%, 11 boards a game, and 11 assists. Chris Paul's right there with 16 points, shooting 41%, 4.6 rebounds, and 8 assists a game. Chris Paul, he shoots the three much better. He shot 29% last year, but the year prior he was shooting it much better. Who do you think wins this trade? Does this make Houston more competitive in your eyes?
It's really hard to tell because there's a lot more than just basketball. There's an ego in Chris Paul, there's an ego in Westbrook. I think it's the right move because clearly Chris Paul and James Harden were starting to butt heads, just something wasn't working. So they go after a guy who has had the greatest reputation with getting along with guys. Not that people dislike Westbrook, but they never really seem to want to stay either. So it will be interesting. I think if you played him on a video game, I rather have Chris Paul because there's no personal dynamics,
Right.
but and he's a better defender. But he is getting older. He was getting hurt more, and Westbrook's the type of guy that quite honestly, I think he's had one big injury. He's very reliable, plays hard. He is going to take advantage of that space that the Rockets have, but he can't shoot as well. So it will be an interesting fit. They have a relationship, which I think is good. So it definitely will be interesting.
Hey, if you're Houston's GM, are you more excited about the acquisition of Russell Westbrook, or like more disappointed you couldn't make it work between CP and Harden? Because I feel like there is potential with Westbrook. You know what I mean? For me personally, I feel like I'd be a little more disappointed I couldn't get it to work with CP because it's proven that they have found success with each other, but it's just like attitudes, personality types, and maybe egos, I don't know, are not meshing clearly. And but on the court, it was shown to be successful. You know what I mean? Like they didn't win a ring or nothing, but they showed that they're just good enough to get there. If they could set their differences aside and maybe make a push for it. But yeah, so would you be more disappointed in not being able to make it work, or would you be more excited to start this chapter with Westbrook?
I love that question because if you cut the money out, then I think you're looking forward to playing with Westbrook. But, they gave Chris Paul a big old fat contract. You got to think that they were planning on it working. I loved the fit on the court. I remember when they teamed up together, everyone said there's no way they'll work. And I knew it would because Chris Paul plays really well without the ball, but he doesn't play well with others, apparently. That's the worst part. I think that there's some optimism for Daryl Morey, but I can see where if it doesn't work, he's probably going to be shown the door because he's gone after everything. He's been very aggressive. In my opinion, I think he's been a little too aggressive in certain moves. but I think he had to make this one because Chris Paul clearly wasn't working. He gets a guy in Westbrook that is a boomer bust type of dude. They're going to make the playoffs. They're going to compete, but I don't know if they'll get any farther than they did before.
Yeah, I mean, OKC, thinking it from the other side, I mean, now they got like 15 first round picks. They're loaded for a rebuild all the way through 2026. And honestly, like Westbrook as a leader just hasn't really impressed me in the past. I'm just I don't know, man. Something about Westbrook to me. I don't know if you can try to change my mind or not, but I feel like I might be on the fence a little bit, but I just feel like Westbrook just can't get over the hump if he's the guy. If he's the number one guy on the team, I feel like he's had every opportunity to show it, and he just hasn't been able to get there. I mean, from being up 3-1 against the Warriors, him and KD are both leaders on that team. They can't close it out. KD leaves. They quickly bring in Paul George. Paul George, even, I mean, he did have injuries here and there, but they're still just not good enough to even make it out of the first round. So for me, I'm sitting here thinking, like, if I were a GM, I'd be like, man, what can Westbrook do it? Like, there's been a lot of chatter about, when him and KD had problems and KD left, there was a lot of little issues here and there, and it's just like, I don't know if I'd want Russell Westbrook on my team. And that's what I think about with the Rockets is they were so close to getting there. If they could have just put their differences aside, they might have made it. So do you have faith in like Westbrook being a leader to maybe put a team over the top, like such as the Rockets?
Yeah, that it's an interesting question because in Oklahoma City I didn't, and if he would have stayed in Oklahoma City, I wouldn't. I'm interested to see if Westbrook is going to approach this new situation as James Harden's team or a guy that's going to strut into the room like, yeah, we played together and I was the man and I'm the man now. It will be really interesting. Some guys, they need that change of scenery. They need to be traded. They need to put on a different uniform, walk into somebody else's locker room instead of Paul George coming into his locker room, Oladipo coming into his locker room. It There's something about that change of scenery that can affect an ego. I wouldn't bet on it, but I think I'll give him a chance. But like I said, I wouldn't be betting any money on it. But it will be interesting. It makes you wonder what kind of roster would benefit Westbrook and get him over the hump.
Yeah, man. I think another issue with Westbrook is like he's 6'3", 200 pounds. He's an athletic freak. Like him averaging triple doubles is nuts to me. I'm a fan of Westbrook. I really am. I just think in the grand scheme of things, championships, I don't know, man. I feel like I'm being really down on him, but I'm just trying to think of it from the point of view like if I'm a GM, do I really think I can build a team around Westbrook? And I don't think I can build around. Okay, so you can't build a team around Westbrook in my opinion, for example. So that leads to the second question, like, can he be the second guy on the team? And I don't think he can be a second guy on the team because, I mean, he shoots 29% from the three, 32% from the catch and shoot, and 31% with his pull ups. So it's really like the offense has to revolve around him. I can't rely on him if my guy's driving and kicks out to him. His catch and shoot is he's shooting just about 30%. And I mean, if he's catch and shooting from three, he's shooting at 29%. So it's like it'd be really difficult for me. And then it's like, okay, well, how long does he have on his contract? If he's going to be under contract for 3-4 more years and he's going to continue to age, his athletic ability isn't going to continue to push his skill set to the next level. So for me, it'd be difficult for me. It might be different. I could see there's a way this does work if Westbrook, I think, it defers to Harden and he attacks the hoop, kicks to Harden, attacks the hoop, kicks to Eric Gordon, PJ Tucker. They got really great role players on that team, and the ball. I mean, it really has to revolve around Harden. And the only way I see it working, honestly, is if Russ just continues to attack because I don't think he's been on a team that spaces the floor as much as this team. If he just continues to attack, dish, find the open guy, it's kind of like how the Spurs play basketball. You know what I mean? They give up a good shot for a great shot. And if you can instill that in Russ's head in this offense, I really do think he would be solid. But I just don't know if you can do that. With that being said, I mean, what do you think about that?
Yeah, it's going to be tough. The toughest part for Westbrook is even when he's unselfish and moves without the ball, he still ultimately catches it at the 3-point line.
Yeah.
And if you can't knock down that three like Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili could, it's hard to be the Spurs in that type of way. But I do agree with the floor spacing. I think he will be able to take advantage of that floor spacing. In my opinion, the pace might hurt him. I think that he's actually better when they slow the ball down.
Hmm.
But yeah, I'm fascinated to see it.
Yeah, there's a. I haven't heard a lot about this, but if some people want to say, "Oh, they played together," there's familiarity. I mean, it's the NBA, for example, that doesn't relate to any players over the last 7 years because the NBA's changed so much, and also the role Harden plays on his team now is completely different than what it was than when he played in OKC.
Harden
Uh,
came off the bench when he was at OKC.
yeah,
It's not like they really played together. So
right.
yeah, I don't buy that as
And
much.
right, and Russ and Harden both lead the league in usage rate, which I think just shows that they are both ball dominant players. Which is fine because in the Harden especially, if I'm a GM, I want him to be my ball dominant guy because he is a baller. But it's like putting the two together. Um, like Shannon Sharp said today, I was watching their show and he's like, "You like ice cream? Yeah. You like mashed potatoes? Yeah. You don't like them together though, right?" That's kind of like the whole Westbrook and Harden thing, and I thought that was really funny. But anyways, with that being said, so if I'm thinking I'm a GM and I don't think I can, and I think Russ has to be the guy, then who are those guys? You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
for you, Nick, if you were the GM and you had to build around Russell Westbrook, my question to you would be, who do you think you would put around him to make him be successful, not just in the regular season, but continue and get out of the first round in the postseason at this point in his career?
yeah, I thought about this a lot. You came up with this idea. I really like it because it's easy to say that a guy can be the guy, but it's a little harder when you have to put pen to paper and put some names down, realistic with money. So, first thing I did was think about players like Westbrook in the past who have got to a finals. And I realized Westbrook has got to a finals,
Mm-hmm.
but it was a little different situation for him. He shot better back then.
Yeah.
He was just a better shooter back then. I don't know what's happened, but anyway, the two guys that I think about that are similar to Westbrook in the way that they affect their team is Allen Iverson and LeBron James. And I don't mean that they play the same, but they affect their teammates the same way. And that is they have the ball in their hand, they're ball dominant, they need to be the man. But the reason he compares to LeBron to me is, but he doesn't want to take the last shot, which is okay. But he needs a guy who can make that last shot. But he wants to be in control of everything else. And then with Allen Iverson, he went to the finals with Mutombo, McKee, and I believe a very young Iguodala. But like, I can't even name the guys on the team. It
Speaking of
was
Iguodala, everybody wants him now. He's like linked to everybody.
yeah, and there was just a mix, just a mishmash of dudes who did their job, and they let Allen Iverson ball. So with that being said, I think that when Westbrook runs the pick and roll and just comes off the pick
Mm,
and takes it to the rack or pulls up for a mid-range jumper, I think he is borderline unstoppable.
yeah.
Problem is, he wants to do all this other stuff. So with that being said, he's never had a big man who can pick and pop or pick and roll. Steven Adams is just a pick and roll guy. So my favorite lineup for Westbrook would be Al Horford, Danilo Gallinari, Will Barton, and Covington because Horford offers the defense. He offers a locker room guy, very mature. He can pick and pop, pick and roll. He can score and distribute. And then around the outside with Covington and Gallinari, they could hit open 3-pointers when guys help side on the backside of the pick and roll. They offer Covington especially offers plus defense, and then Will Barton being that secondary ball handler and slasher that has shown to go well with Westbrook with guys like Oladipo and even Schroeder. So I like the length, I like the shooting, and another thing I like is Horford, Gallo, Barton, and Covington. They're good dudes, and they've shown that they are willing to mesh on their team however they need to do that.
Yeah, Covington's a better 3-and-D player than I think a lot of people take him for.
Yeah,
I was looking at some stuff. It was him and one other player. I can't remember who it is, but with like 125 made threes and like 75 blocks. And last season, it was him and one other guy. I don't remember who the first guy was, but I remember thinking like, man, honestly, I don't watch a lot of Timberwolves games, and I mean
yeah,
this guy was getting it done. Like it just shows, just in his stats alone. And I like the pick of Will Barton because I mean I loved him in Portland. I think he's an energy, he's a spark. He gets hot. He can give you quick 12 points or whatever if he's feeling it. Um,
yeah,
for my team, I was thinking like, okay, so what's Russ good at? He's attacking, he's athletic, he's good off the pick. So what can I build? What is he missing? Some rebounding, some 3-and-D player you always need. Stretch the floor a little bit, let him attack, let him run the show. I don't want another alpha. So I mean, for one of my guards, I took my boy Danny Green because honestly, he fits in any roster. I feel like his play style for
yeah.
me. I really maybe I'm too high on him. I don't know, but I just think you can almost put him on any team in the league, and he's gonna be in the plus minus column as a plus. So
I agree.
I think he's a solid two-way guy for him. I also have Eric Gordon on there, which is kind of funny because now he's playing with him, but he's just a good spot-up shooter and he's a good defender. He's just a good guy. He's a good player, good wing, and I think Russ wants to be the leader. I don't think Gordon's somebody who's super egotistical. So I think these Danny Green and Gordon are both comfortable in their roles. And as my forward, which this could be an issue personality wise, but I picked Draymond Green because people can hate the guy, but he is like I don't want to say the nucleus of the Warriors, but he is like the spirit almost. He's always hustling, he's going after every loose ball, he's causing problems for the other team. He just does all the dirty work, I feel like. He's a leader on the court, and that might cause some problems. He might butt heads with Russ a little bit because they both want to be leaders. But I just think Draymond's a good guy to have on the floor regardless. My center is Vucevic because he can
Yeah,
he can spread the floor. He helps Russ with spacing, and he can pick and pop too. He can play that game with Russ, so I think that's the ultimate for Russ right there. I
yeah.
mean,
I like the Draymond fit actually a lot because it takes attention off of Westbrook being emotional or doing all the stuff that he does that people nitpick him about. Draymond takes that camera away or that tweet away,
yeah,
whatever it
and I
is.
almost think Draymond wants that directed towards him. I think just
Exactly.
Draymond does a lot of things that don't show up on the stat sheet. That like if you look back in 30 years, you're like, oh, that guy had some pretty good games. He was decent. He was good. But it's like you watch
Yeah,
him on like these finals games, and you're like, damn, Draymond is a problem for the other team. He's a problem. Um,
definitely.
but it's like I think some key things that are around Russ is like he needs the team to be built around him. He needs to have a mobile big that can also be a rim protector, and he's just got to have shooters around him. I think those are three major components of a successful Russ team. Um, and I mean, I don't think he's really ever played with a mobile center. You know what I mean? Having Steven Adams there, which I really like Steven Adams, but he's not a super mobile, shoot it from the elbow type center. Um, but yeah, man. So I think there is a way for this Houston Rockets team to work with Westbrook, but I don't know, man. I think the chances of it are real slim. But with that being said, on the other side of this trade, where what do you think is gonna go? What do you think is gonna happen with Chris Paul? I mean, the one cool stat I saw with him is when he was on the court with Harden, he was averaging 14, shot 54%, and had 7 assists. And when Harden was off the floor, and obviously Chris Paul's usage rate goes way up because Harden's not there, which is appropriate. It's nothing wrong with that. But then he started averaging just under 23 a game. He shot 58% and had 12.5 assists. So he's shown he can still play. But what do you think's a good spot for him or a good fit?
Yeah, he definitely can still play. I think it's actually really interesting. He's gonna get traded. He's already asking for a trade, but in my opinion, if they kept Gallinari, Chris Paul, Steven Adams, Schroeder, and Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, and if they would have kept Jeremy Grant,
Yeah.
it would have been super interesting to see because I think they might have been about the same that they were last year, if not better. But he's most likely going to get traded. The toughest thing with a Chris Paul trade is that contract. It is big, and it is for the next 4 years, I believe. And the two teams that I think can do it and would be willing to do it is Miami and Charlotte. I realize there have been some recent reports about Miami that they're not interested, that may be true, but I still think that they're a team that could do it and that they will think about it just because Chris Paul seems like a Riley type of guy, tough, hardworking, experienced. I think him and Jimmy Butler would get along in a weird way because they're so crazy. And they actually would really complement each other on the court if they did get along.
Well, I
And
heard that was the reason Butler wanted to go to Houston. Or I read that was kind of the reason is Chris Paul was like communicating with Butler a decent amount, trying to recruit him over. So that was something I thought was interesting too.
okay, yeah, that is interesting because if they could get along, I really like that duo on the court. And then the only reason I picked Charlotte is because they have some contracts that I think that they'd like to get rid of. And if you can get rid of 3 contracts that are on 2-year deals and take on one being an all-star on a 4-year deal, I think it's worth a shot. And I think that him and Rozier could play together in the backcourt. I think that they're tired of paying Batum $25 million a year and a few other guys, Marvin Williams, Michael Kidd Gilchrist, and Cody Zeller are some other guys that I think they'd be willing to move on from. But other than that, it's really hard to find a suitor. And then for Gallinari, I think his market will be a lot bigger because the money works easier and he's a really good dude. I don't think he'll be traded before the season starts. I could be wrong, but I think Oklahoma City is going to let him play a little bit and wait and see who needs a guy like Gallinari. Somebody's going to get injured in the NBA season, spoiler alert, and contenders are going to want to add pieces. If that's Milwaukee, Philadelphia, or the Lakers are the first 3 teams that popped in my mind, I think he would be money for the Bucks and for the 76ers. I think that the 76ers especially have young assets to move that would help make that deal be more intriguing for Oklahoma City. Or even if Gallinari gets bought out and someone signs him before the deadline as a free agent, I can see that happening as well.
Yeah, I think so. The CP to Miami, I think that's probably the number one spot for him. But I thought it was for Westbrook too. I was pretty convinced last podcast we did. But I think that is the number one spot. The interesting thing is OKC owns Miami's 2021 and 2023 first round picks. So if they sent Chris Paul there and they were a monster, those picks are devalued in a sense. But my biggest problem with Chris Paul, I think he can hoop. I think he's a great player. My problem
Yeah.
is he's just constantly injured. I feel like postseason constantly injured. He leads his team. He doesn't lead his team really. I think he plays super well. He puts his team in a really good position in the postseason, but he's never there to help finish the job. So that could be an issue where your picks all of a sudden are in the mid to late 20s, or maybe early 20s, being it's the Heat. But yeah, I mean they can move Chris Paul for some expirings like Dragic and some contributors like Justice Winslow, but I don't know. Miami's probably realistically the other one, the most realistic place for him to go.
Yeah.
The Mavericks are another one I picked because the Mavericks could be wanting to get off Hardaway and Courtney Lee's contracts and wanting to win with Luka and Porzingis. They could continue to build around those guys and have kind of Chris Paul help maneuver the waters, help maneuver the tough Western Conference. What do you think about him going to the Mavericks?
Yeah, I love the fit for a year or two. It's
Yeah,
the toughest part
that's
about
the
it is
thing.
that 4-year deal. I
That's the
think
thing with
that
Chris Paul. Yeah, it's rough.
at a certain point, it just depends on if Chris Paul is willing to take on any role. Because I love the fit in Dallas for a year or two as their starting point guard.
Mm-hmm.
But is he willing to be a guy who comes off the bench for his last 2 years, even though he's getting paid like an all-star? And I don't know. It's really tough to tell. But in terms of just the fit on the court, I really like it. I think Dallas should keep an eye out for defensive point guards if it's next year's free agency or whenever, because they have a real advantage having Doncic as their point guard. They should get a
Yeah, that's
guy who looks like a point guard who can defend these stars,
yeah.
and Chris Paul can do that.
See, my biggest thing, like again, like I said at the beginning of this, like if I'm a GM and I'm like evaluating Chris Paul for my team, the thing that is gonna stick with me is it's like, man, this guy just cannot stay healthy in the postseason. He's never in the postseason. You know what I mean? So it's hard because ultimately, I mean, you want to have successful seasons. Like, I hate the fans that are like, our team sucks, our team sucks. It's like, well, you made it to the second round of the playoffs 4 years. Like, you're finding
Exactly.
success. You're not winning at all, but you're finding success. And
Yeah.
but it's like ultimately your goal is to win a championship. So it's like if I'm trying to bring in Chris Paul to win a ring, it's like is he even going to be there to help finish the job? So that would be my biggest hurdle with him. But yeah, it's
I think Oklahoma City is going to have to give up draft picks to move Chris Paul. I don't
yeah.
think they're going to get more back.
I definitely yeah I think they're definitely gonna have to give up incentivize some teams to take him off their hands. And that's like a team like Miami. Like if they realistically are interested, they could just like wait it out and be like, yo, who are we betting against? We're the only team that'll take him off your hands. So we want
Yeah,
this and
definitely.
this. So. But anyways, Nick, do you have anything else before we wrap this up? We're just under 26 minutes. You got anything else you want to say?
No, I think we covered it. Got over Westbrook, got the little Chris Paul in there. I don't want to say it for sure, but I think these rosters are starting to form into shape. And they're going to stay the way they are.
Yeah,
I don't
until it's
know.
midnight a week from now and something crazy happens again.
Definitely.
But hey, man, I saw Vince Carter maybe linked to Portland earlier too. I thought that was kind of nice. Shot 40% from spot up threes. I'm like, not too bad, not too bad. But anyways, man.
Always welcome insanity.
Yeah. Anyways, man, thanks for coming on again. I appreciate it. We'll be back soon. Our social medias. I'm never gonna figure out how to do this pointing thing here. Over there, under Nick, and give us a follow, give us a subscribe, like, comment. Let us know what you want us to talk about in the comment section. Appreciate you guys for watching. Thank you so much. See you later, man.
See ya.